Our minutes will reflect that this hybrid meeting is being held pursuant to the 45th supplement to mayoral proclamation declaring the existence of a local emergency dated February 25th, 2020, and is being held subject to the conditions of that proclamation. This meeting is being live cablecast on SFGov TV2 and stream online at sfgovtv.org/ethicslive. For public comment, members of the public may attend in person and or participate by phone. Comment remote will be handled, and if you can explain to the audience how this will be done. Moderator?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public comment will be available on each item of this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. For those attending in person, opportunity to speak during the public comment period will be made available here in room 400 City Hall. For those attending remotely, public comment period can also be provided via phone call by calling 1-415-655-0001. Again, the phone number is 1-415-655-0001. Access code is 24959290781. Again, the access code is 24959290781, followed by the pound sign. Then press pound again to join as an attendee. For callers, you will hear a beep when you are connected to the meeting. You will be automatically muted and in listening mode only. When your item of interest comes up, dial *3 to raise your hand and to be added to the public comment line. You will then hear, "You have raised your hand to ask a question. Please wait until the host calls on you." The line will be silent as you wait your turn to speak. Ensure that you are in a quiet location. Before you speak, mute the sound of any equipment around you, including television, radio, or computer. It is especially important that you mute your computer if you are watching via the web link to prevent feedback and echo when you speak. When the system message says your line has been unmuted, this is your turn to speak. You will hear staff say, "Welcome, caller." You are encouraged to state your name clearly. As soon as you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you change your mind and wish to withdraw yourself from the public comment line, press *3 again. You will hear the system say, "You have lowered your hand." Once your 3 minutes has expired, staff will thank you and mute you. You will hear your line has been muted. Attendees who wish to speak during other public comment periods may stay on the line and listen for the next public comment opportunity and should raise their hands to enter the public comment line by pressing *3 when their next item of interest comes up. Public comment may also be submitted in writing and will be shared with the Commission after this meeting has concluded and will be included as part of the official meeting file. Written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Once again, written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Moderator. I now call the meeting to order. Agenda item number 1, which is roll call.
Commissioners, please verbally indicate your presence by saying aye after your name is called. Commissioner Bush? Commissioner Flores-Fang?
Aye.
Commissioner Finliv?
Aye.
Chair Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Romano?
Aye.
Chair Lee, with 4 members present and accounted for, we have a quorum.
Okay. I will note that Vice Chair Bush is participating remotely, and I think we're trying to work out the technical issues. With that, agenda item number 2, please, public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda. I now call for those attending in person here, if there's anyone who wishes to speak on matters on the general comments. If not, let's go to our remote audience. Moderator?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For remote participants, if you've joined the meeting earlier to listen to the proceedings, now is the time to get in line to speak. Members of the public who are already online and wish to provide public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda under item 2 should now dial *3 or raise your hand in the WebEx if you have not already done so to be added to the public comment line. Once you are in the queue and standing by, the system will prompt you when it's your turn to speak. We also ask that you please address your comments to the commission as a whole and not to individual members. Please stand by, Madam Chair, as we check for callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, public comment for agenda item number 2 is closed. And I'll call for the consent calendar. As noted on the agenda, there will be no separate discussions on the consent calendar item unless a request is made by a commission member or a member of the public in attendance, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item. If any commissioner asks to discuss the item, that item will be taken up following action on the consent calendar items on the regular calendar for discussion and action. Does any commission member wish to discuss any item on the consent calendar? No, I
Yes.
see none. Commissioner
you there?
Bush? Commissioner Bush,
Yeah,
you wish to take any items out of the consent calendar?
I can't get it to unmute so that I can participate.
We can hear you, Commissioner
Okay,
Bush.
yeah,
Oh, thank you.
but you're fine with the consent calendar? You're not objecting, you're not proposing to take any items out? I guess not. Okay, right now I would invite the members of the public who wish to provide any public comment on the consent calendar items. Seeing none, moderator, can you check to see if there's anyone waiting in the queue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Public comment is closed. Commissioners, hearing no public further discussion, do I entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Sure, I move to adopt the consent calendar.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call, please. Oh, sorry, let me review the specific items that we are taking action on. Agenda item number 3 is resolution on continuation of remote hybrid commission meetings. Item 4, draft minutes of the Ethics Commission, December 9, 2022 regular meeting. Item number 5, Executive Director's report highlighting various departmental programs and operations. Roll call, please.
On the motion to adopt the consent calendar, Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang,
Aye.
Commissioner Finliff,
Aye.
Chair Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Romano.
Aye.
Madam Chair, with 5 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We now go to agenda item number 6, which is discussion and possible action on Executive Director recruitment process. Colleagues, as you recall, we took action last month at the last month meeting to engage the executive search firm CPS HR to assist our efforts to recruit our next executive director. We have been working with the representative from CPS HR, Ms. Rachel Danke, who's met with many of you. And this morning, we are joined by another representative from CPS HR, Ms. Pamela Derby, who is here to give us any update and also answer any questions we may have. Welcome, Ms. Derby.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. I just need to load a PowerPoint. I think my, Gathry, I think my port is too large, possibly.
Can you try this side?
And while we're waiting, Mr. Moderator, can you make sure that Vice Chair Bush has access to the presentation as well?
I will touch base with Stephen. I don't know how that's possible when he's calling from the telephone.
Anyway, if we can text it to the presentation to his phone.
Chair, if I may.
I was just informed that Commissioner Bush has a copy of the presentation
Good,
on his
okay,
email.
thank you.
My apologies. I'm always having to learn a different computer.
No problem.
I may have grabbed the wrong flash drive. Finally, my apologies. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for your indulgence. My apologies. I am with CPS HR Consulting. Here we go. So CPS is actually a joint powers authority for those of you who are not aware. We are a public agency. We've been in existence since 1985 as a full service HR consulting company for the public sector. We were originally part of the State Personnel Board many years ago, starting in the 30s, but we have been a sole entity on doing full service HR since 1985. We've been doing the executive recruitment portion for more than 20 years now. We work with San Francisco. We've worked with San Francisco on many different recruitments. We work with MTC extensively as well. Many of the large cities in the Bay Area. We're doing the Director of Environmental position right now for the city as well. And so we have quite a bit of background in these types of positions. I do manage the executive recruitment function at CPS HR. I've started my 20th year there. Rachel, who you've been speaking with, is our associate recruiter who's been doing a terrific job, has spoken with many of you regarding the recruitment, what you're looking for in this position. and we will continue to work with you on the things that you're looking for in the next executive director. We have here just a sample of what the recruitment schedule could look like. I know we sent this to you yesterday. Right now, what we are looking at is we've talked about gathering all the information from you. We do know that there's an extensive list of stakeholders additionally that you'd like us to speak with. And so this schedule is offered as just a sample because I think that it's going to need to be flexible to accommodate many of those conversations. One of the things I would suggest is that we do an online survey. I don't know that we've talked about that previously, so that we can offer that to all the staff, to some of those other stakeholders who may not have time for conversations with us. It would offer a broader view and allow many more people to participate if we don't have time to have those conversations personally. But typically, what we've have here is talking about advertising for 4 weeks. Oftentimes in a position like this, it's possible that we may need to have a longer marketing period. It's really important that we reach out to all the people that you need us to. We could run it as open until filled with a first resume review date, but I do think we want to make sure that we allow ample time for us to look for the right individuals and make sure that we've contacted those individuals around the country, frankly, to make sure that they are aware of this position to encourage them to apply. So currently, in the conversations that we've had, this is a word cloud that shows the things that came up the most often in those conversations: political acumen, visionary, government experience, law background, customer facing. It became very clear that this person needs to be someone who is able to stand up and has a backbone, as it were, is willing to make the difficult decision and give the difficult recommendations that may be necessary. You want someone who's already been in a high-profile public-facing position. And so these are the things that we would usually use in the recruitment brochure to talk about the ideal candidate. But one of the things we'll also use this information for is to, when we're screening candidates and talking to candidates and encouraging them, we want to make sure that they fit this profile, that these are the candidates that we're bringing to you. And when we're doing our screening interviews with them, that we have poised our questions so that it gathers that information about them. So the process is we need to create this online brochure. I know that we have given you a draft brochure at this point, but again, we will be taking additional feedback, and so it may be that that is still going to continue to change. We are targeting February 1st to start advertising this position, but again, because there's so much stakeholder involvement that you're seeking, it may be that that gets pushed out if you want to make sure that we've made all of those contacts prior to this hitting the street. And so then we would, after you've had this, after we've been able to get to a point where we think it's where it should be, we'll ask for your comments and what you'd like to see added or deleted. We would then create the professional brochure. Here is an example of what a brochure looks like. It is what we call a flip book format, so it's very easy to use electronically. Most candidates are able to then see it on their telephones. We find that doing things electronically, it's number one, it's greener. We want to make sure that, in the old days, frankly, we printed all of these, they were sent out, and we don't use that process anymore. We do everything electronically. It is more accessible for candidates, and it's also is a greener solution. After the brochure is created, we start advertising on all the appropriate sites. We will send out an initial email blast to those individuals around the country Usually that's around 2,500 to 5,000 candidates in just that initial email blast. But the important thing is the follow-up in us contacting individuals, people that you may have told us you want to make sure we speak with, et cetera, to encourage them to apply. And that's when I talked about that marketing period, that's usually at least 30 to 45 days. So during this active recruitment period, as I said, we will be researching neighboring associations, counties, universities, et cetera. There'll be direct outreach from the recruiters. We will be doing scheduled informal screening interviews with candidates to talk to them, to encourage them to apply. I think one of the most important things to talk about at this point is that it's very important to us that we reach a diverse pool of candidates as well. I think it's worth noting that in the last 3 years, 57% of the candidates that we have placed have been diverse candidates, women, people of color, or both. And so that aspect is very important to CPS HR. We will certainly be looking at cities with the same demographics as San Francisco, obviously one of the most diverse cities in the country. Obviously, the size of San Francisco is another demographic that we're looking at when we're looking at possible candidates. But a lot of those things also are from those conversations that we have with you about the things that you're looking for in this candidate. And so we want to make sure that those candidates we target have those qualities. We do use Zoom Info as a new platform that we've been using for sourcing that actually has a diversity filter, is one of the things that we have added to our portfolio of sourcing capabilities. We use LinkedIn Recruiter extensively to target different parts of the country, to target specific attributes that you're looking for. We're able to put in Boolean searches that we can talk about what type of education they have, what type of organizations they're with, where they're located, et cetera. And so those are some of those additional things that we do on top of just making sure that we have sent this out to individuals who are in the same types of positions in the same types of cities. After everyone applies directly to CPS HR, to our applicant tracking system, which was noticed before, which is Bullhorn, after the final filing date or that first resume review date that we discussed, we'll be vetting all of the resumes. We'll be doing that in consultation with the commission as well. And then we will be doing screening interviews with all of the candidates that meet the minimum qualifications that have been advertised. I'll be honest, I think we even go a little bit beyond. We make sure that we want to capture and look at a full pool of candidates. And it may be that someone on paper, we're not quite sure. We're going to go ahead and speak with that individual because we want to make sure that sometimes people, even attorneys or those types of individuals that would be high profile for this position, sometimes putting together a resume is not necessarily and cover letter is not necessarily a attribute that they have been working on recently. And so then after we have had those screening interviews, we will present all of those candidates to the commission. We will discuss the attributes of all of the candidates, indicate who we recommend that you move forward with, and then we would put together client interviews and selection process for the commission. Following all those selection processes, obviously some of the things that we're doing as those things happen is we do very comprehensive reference checks on finalist candidates. After a conditional job offer is made, then we do a very extensive background check. In California, you cannot do at least a criminal background check until a conditional job offer is on the table, and so we can certainly do intermittent checking, civil, credit, education verification, but we cannot initiate a criminal background check until a conditional job offer has been made. We help with salary negotiation if necessary. We are advertising a range for this position. And then we would help put together with counsel an employment agreement if necessary. We're available to help with all of those processes. So my apologies. I started off a little rough here this morning, but I'm happy to entertain any questions now, etc.
Thank you, Ms. Derby. I also want to note for the record that we have Mr. Paul Green representing DHR here to answer any questions we may have as well. Colleagues, any questions, comments?
I really appreciated speaking with your colleague about the process. Great presentation. I think everything you laid out makes a lot of sense. I think an online survey is a great idea. I don't think we need to do anything about that. I think you can work with staff to make that happen. But thank you for being here and for the presentation.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Bush?
Chair Lee,
Commissioner
can you hear
Bush?
me?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
part of the materials that was provided was a rundown description of the Ethics Commission itself. And I want to make sure that that description includes information that was provided to the Ethics Commission as a result of the board budget and legislative analyst review, the controller's review, the civil grand jury reviews, and also the Ethics Commission's response to the Board of Supervisors when they held their hearing on the issues that were raised. There's a consistent theme that has gone on for the past perhaps 6 or 7 years, which is that we are more duties given to us than funds allocated to get the work done. And I think that a candidate needs to be aware that to date, we have been operated under the restrictions of a budget set by City Hall rather than one that we set ourselves.
Okay. I just have a couple of questions for Ms. Derby. In terms of the brochure, I totally agree that we don't need to kill any more trees by making them in paper. But what I would like to suggest is, because we're competing with so many other people looking for a very selected pool of candidates, if you can add like a opening statement of who we are, who we're looking for, a visionary leader, exceptional leader, whatever, so that people know that this is a great opportunity for them in terms of their personal, professional growth. That could catch some eyes, because I think most of us just skim over a lot of these things in our email. So if you can put that opening statement in the front, that would be really helpful. In terms of public engagement, I think that because we are operating on such a tight timeline, I think that you have enough to start putting together a general profile of who we're looking for. And as we have all said, we don't want to limit the pool. We want to make sure that we catch all the qualified and enthusiastic applicants as we can. So I would suggest that we go on ahead with the publication. Meanwhile, if we can get the online survey, which I understand is pretty straightforward, get that started, and in the meantime, as we have discussed, to start scheduling our community engagement sessions with our community partners and stakeholders, because their involvement and their comments would be reflected as we go through the process, as we review the resumes as well as interviewing the candidates on the next rounds. So unless my colleagues have any other comments, I would suggest that we proceed without waiting for all the comments are back, because we do have a very tight timeline.
Thank you, Chair. I would recommend that we do have what we would call a unique opportunity statement at the beginning of the brochure. And certainly that would then be on our website. When people go to the page, that statement would be there. It would be included in our initial email blast to individuals and in the advertising. I think it's very important that right now the brochure talks about the commission and it talks about the duties of the position. At the moment, we don't have an ideal candidate statement. I think that that's what we can include in that unique opportunity, and those are the things that we want to advertise. I mean, obviously, we do want people to know what the job is and understand the KSAs. However, it's really important for people to know exactly what you're looking for, and that is that ideal candidate and those things that maybe are the intangibles that you're looking for in this individual. So I appreciate greatly that feedback.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other comments, let's open up for public comments, please. Anyone in the room who wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, moderator, can you please check if anyone's waiting in the queue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. Please stand by.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, there's no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Derby, and thank you, Mr. Green, as well. Now let's go to agenda item number 7. Continued discussion and possible action regarding request for waiver of post-employment restrictions for Mr. Phillip Wong. Colleagues, as you recall, we had this discussion, we had this on the agenda at the last meeting, and this was continued to today. We had made requests for further information from Mr. Wong. I first want to call on our senior policy analyst, Mr. Michael Kenning, if he can give us any update and to introduce Mr. Wong.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I was going to make a quick suggestion. To the extent any of us have tentative thoughts, it might make sense to put them out there so that Mr. Canning and Mr. Wong can respond to those in their remarks.
Okay.
I'm just throwing it out there. Whenever I appeared in front of a judge, I love when they told me what they were thinking so I could kind of tailor my comments.
Okay. Well, I do think that for the benefit of the
Okay.
viewing audience, it would be good to give a 1-minute summation of why we're here and why this agenda item is appearing before us. 1-minute briefing.
Yes, happy to do that, Shirley. This is the continued item of a post-employment waiver request for Phillip Wong, who's a current city employee and is seeking waivers to the Commission's, or the city's 1-year communication ban on communicating with your former city department, as well as a waiver on the prohibition against representing anyone other than the city in a particular matter. And at the December meeting, the Commission requested that the requester, Phillip Wong, submit a supplemental document responding to various Commission questions, which Mr. Wong did on January 5th of this year, and that communication has been included with the agenda materials for this meeting. And Mr. Wong is in the room and available to speak to his supplemental document as well as answer questions. Thank you.
I'm not sure I received a supplemental response.
It was emailed and posted with the agenda documents, I believe. It's a letter directed to.
I think it's inside the other agenda item, the
It's
prior
inside
one.
8,
Yeah,
which at the end.
I think so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kenning. Shall we ask Mr. Wong to come up and to answer any questions you may have? Hi, Mr. Wong. Welcome again.
Good morning, Chair Lee and Commissioners Forrest Fang, Commissioner Finlev, Commissioner Romano, and Vice Chair Bush.
We can barely hear you.
Oh, I apologize for that. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here on this very auspicious Friday the 13th. I am here to answer any questions you may have on the supplemental response. I understand, Commissioner Romano, you may need a few minutes to look through the document, which I spent a lot of time on, and I really appreciate the commission's, especially Commissioner Finlev, your recommendation that I respond directly to the staff report. It helped me really organize my thoughts and really reinforce for me the reason why I'm seeking the waiver request and why this opportunity to move to Bridge Housing, a nonprofit affordable housing developer, is not only a good move for me, but I think beneficial for the project and its overall goals shared by the city and by many other stakeholders. If there are specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then I'm also joined by my supervisor team, Ann Topier and Judson True, if you have questions for them that they may answer on my current duties, serving 5 different development projects.
Let's check in with Vice Chair Bush. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm completely fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for providing the supplemental response. It was really helpful. I think for us, the challenge is the key kind of term we're focused on is undue influence, but there's very little guidance on what that means. So for me, it was really helpful. Mr. Canning provided some prior commission actions where we had addressed this issue. And to me, there's some really important factors in there that are helpful here, which is looking at whether I think the interests between the city and the new potential employment are aligned, whether there's a potential for your personal financial enrichment, whether there are kind of safeguards in place. And I think those factors that are all in place here, as far as I can tell, the city's mission is aligned with your proposed new position in terms of the mission scope. I didn't see in my review that you had the potential for enriching yourself in your new position, other than obviously drawing a salary. So I think for me, given the kind of unity of interest, given that and the way you've laid out some of your roles previously and what your future role would be, I don't see the kind of potential for undue influence that I think these laws are addressing. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. But I have a very specific question, which is,
Yes.
with regard to your communications with your current department, MOHCD, I may have gotten the acronym wrong.
The Office of Economic and Workforce Development.
Sorry, right, that's the
that's
wrong
okay.
one. What specifically communications would you be doing with your current department in your new role over the next year or so?
Sure. My understanding is that that role would be to carry out all of the obligations within the major approvals, specifically the development agreement. That includes the disposition of a market rate parcel. There are several market rate parcels throughout the Potrero Hope SF development. This is a key financial mechanism for this project where the sale of this land feeds, all of those proceeds go right back into the project for the construction of affordable housing. And it also feeds into the primary mission to build mixed income neighborhoods. So my communications with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development would concern the very public appraisal and disposition of these this next market rate parcel, or first one at this project.
And are there specific kinds of decisions that you'd be seeking to influence in that category?
I hopefully define, we actually have never had a market rate parcel at any Hope SF site developed, which again is a key financial mechanism to build the project out. And what I would seek to do is collaborate with the city to make sure that we are approaching the right appraisers in a very public procurement process to make sure that we can get a developer who is willing in these market conditions to build a market rate building.
Right. Yeah, so I think for me this is a really hard one, and this is exactly why we have the waiver process.
Yes.
But given what you've put out there, and I also thought it was really helpful when you lined out what your current roles do not include, And so given all that, I personally am thinking that a waiver is appropriate here, given everything we know on the record. And the supplemental materials were really, really helpful in that regard. So thank you for doing that.
I'm grateful that you asked for it, Commissioner Finlove. It was a very, very difficult exercise to go through because I have deep respect for the commission staff and the time that they had to put in during their work hours to prepare it. And I obviously care very much about it to present in front of this commission. And I spent a lot of time after work and talking to many former colleagues and friends who were very valuable in helping me. And I recognize that I have that privilege to have those resources and support. And I am deeply grateful for your consideration.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because also I want to thank Mr. Canning. I think he did excellent work on this. And I think if he hadn't made this recommendation, he probably wouldn't have been doing his job. So I think if I was in his shoes, I would have made the same recommendation to me. So what I'm saying today is by no means a reflection on your excellent work on this. I think this is what the process is for, and it's exactly how it should work.
Commissioner Finlove, I couldn't echo your words better, that I have the highest esteem for Mr. Canning and his responsiveness and his clarity. And I even asked questions about how would the recommendation lean, and he said it would be inappropriate for him to advise on that until we were in a public setting. And I said, absolutely, I absolutely agree with you. And I cannot speak more highly about Mr. Canning and his ethical integrity and quality in working with me.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I want to say that I agree that this is a close call, and on paper, it really seems like a waiver is not appropriate. And I appreciate your hard work. Everybody who's come and spoken on your behalf, I think we were all moved and impressed by you and your presentation and by Mr. Canning's work. As I recall, I asked the city attorney to brief the question about what undue influence means. Is that, I may have not gotten provided the right materials, but has the city attorney provided that information?
Good morning, Commissioners. Deputy City Attorney Brad Rusty. I'm prepared to address the question now. I didn't provide the Commission anything in advance of the meeting.
Great.
As I said last meeting, there is no definition for these terms in the code or in the regulations.
There's no case law, there's nothing? I can't believe
no
that.
case law construing these terms for purposes of this ordinance or these regulations. A court would likely look at the plain language of the regulation in the ordinance. And I think it comes down to a judgment call for the commission to determine in this context what these terms mean, looking at the factors that the regulation lays out that the commission would look at. The term undue...
I hear what you're saying. I can't believe that there isn't a court that hasn't defined what undue influence is in other contexts. I really just find that
Commissioner,
unbelievable.
There is a statute. There's a civil code section that provides a definition of undue influence, but it's in the context of contract disputes. And there's also a Black Laws Dictionary definition for undue influence, which is also in that context, which I can read for you if you'd like, but I don't know that that's necessarily applicable to the context that the Commission is looking at this term here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to public comments. Anyone in the audience who wish to speak on this item? I see none. Let's go to the moderator. Can you please check on the queue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have one caller in the queue. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. My name is Ken Rich, and I, until a few years ago, was the Director of Development within the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, the position that Ms. Topier holds now, and was lucky enough to be able to be among a group of us who hired Phillip about 10 or 11 years ago, first as an assistant to several of us, and then he kind of rose through the ranks. And I actually had a chance to watch your previous hearing, Commissioners, and was reminded just how kind of shockingly upstanding and thorough Phillip was working with us for all of this time. And I just wanted to make a couple of very quick points, and I won't take up too much of your time. One is just if there's anybody who can be relied upon to stay within the lines, not go outside the lines, make sure that he's following all the ethical rules and sort of keeping things on the up and up. I can't think of another human being that would do that better than Phillip. And then secondly, kind of shifting gears, I was involved in part of the negotiation for the Hope SF projects way back when. And I do want to just emphasize how different they were. I was involved in many, many large development agreement negotiations. And this one is very different. It's really not oppositional. The project is largely funded with city funds. The parties are nonprofit developers. And there's just an alignment. Even during the actual negotiations, there was much more alignment than typical. And now that those negotiations are done and we're in implementation, I really wouldn't have a lot of concern about the undue influence that you're rightfully looking into. So I'll leave it at that and happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand by while we check to see if there's any further callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Okay, public comment to this agenda item number is closed. Mr. Wong, as you know, this commission takes our power to grant waivers very, very seriously. And I agree with my colleagues, this is a very difficult decision, but you are the ideal candidate that these type of waivers is intended for. Your commitment to the city, the commitment to the housing community is to be applauded. I also want to thank our analysts who really laid out all the options and all the reasoning for such a waiver, whether it's to grant it or to deny it before us. And this is a very narrowly tailored case as far as I'm concerned, because we appreciate your commitment, and what I would love to see is for you to come back from time to time just to update us with what's happening, because we are always willing to learn how to improve the powers that's given us. In this case, how the waivers will work for future public employees. So I welcome you to come back and give us an update with what you've been doing, what bridge and what the city's partnership with you is going. So, colleagues, I would like to entertain a motion to grant this waiver to Mr. Phillip Wong.
What happened because always.
Julie, can I ask a clarification question? On the scope of the waiver, particularly the one-year waiver, I believe at the previous meeting, Commissioner Flores-Fang had brought up the limited waivers that have been awarded in the past. So just as a reminder, the commission could grant general waiver or could do the one-year communication ban, so it's a waiver except for communications regarding Potrero Hope SF on behalf of Bridge Housing. So that could be further narrowed or could be as open as you'd like.
Yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
open to a limited waiver, again, for Mr. Wong to come back and brief us during this time.
Yes, thank you. I found the precedent of Tiffany Bohe very helpful in making that decision, but I found that the supplemental response outlined for me what kind of communication Mr. Wong would be engaging in, so I didn't necessarily find it necessary to proceed with that at the moment. I'm not sure if my colleagues may want to take it up.
No, I think to make sure we're talking about the same thing, the 1 year ban on talking to your own department would only be waived as to communications on behalf of your new employer. Is that what Mr. Canning's talking about? That makes sense. You should still be barred from communicating with your current employer on behalf of other entities. I don't know what else you're going to be doing, but if you become a hobby lobbyist for some other group, you should not be communicating with your current department. I think that's the point, right? So I think, and that's what happened in the precedent that Commissioner Floresvang was talking about. So I think that is very much appropriate.
So are you saying that we need to implement it like the precedent kind of implies, or this is something that the employer should already kind of have in place due to conflicts?
I think the waiver is just, it's waived for 1 year as it relates to communications on behalf of your potential new employer, right? I'm sure that's how they structured it in the past. Mr. Canning is nodding his head.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the draft language, right?
Correct, yeah. I think the could be structured so that waives communications on behalf of Bridge Housing. I suppose the other, another step would be on behalf of Bridge Housing in relation to the Potrero Hope SF project. I don't know if the commission sees a problem with potentially Mr. Wong communicating on kind of other issues on behalf of Bridge. So I think either options are available.
Yeah, I think the waiver it should just be, it's waived for 1 year for communications on behalf of your new employer. And so that's an onus on you. It's not an onus on your new employer. It's just you personally have to be mindful of that.
Okay, so.
Do we do this by motion? What's the mechanics?
As a motion?
Leave motion, yeah.
I made the motion, any second?
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
On the motion to grant waiver, Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Floresvang,
Aye.
Commissioner Finliffe,
Aye.
Chair Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Romano.
Aye. Good luck.
Madam Chair, with
Congratulations.
5 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
We'll see you again.
Best wishes.
Good luck.
Happy New Year.
Okay, let's go to now agenda item number 8, which is a confidential closed session discussion and possible action regarding a probable cause determination in a case involving potential violations of Article 3, Chapter 2 of the San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. This item has been scheduled for the Commission's discussion and possible action. Under the San Francisco Charter, the Commission is responsible for enforcing against violations of the San Francisco Campaign and Government Conduct Code. The Commission is charged with conducting hearings to determine whether someone has violated the law and shall be subject to penalties. Before that happens, there must first be a finding that there is probable cause to believe that the person or quote-unquote respondent has violated the law. That is why item 8 is on today's agenda. It is not to determine whether a violation has in fact occurred, but rather whether there is probable cause to believe a violation has occurred. At this time, the name or names of the respondent or respondents cannot be publicly disclosed. This is because the city charter requires that the Commission's investigations be handled confidentially prior to the finding of probable cause. Until that time, no information about an investigation can be shared publicly. I would like to remind my fellow commissioners and ethics staff of the importance of maintaining confidentiality. You must not disclose information about this case, underlying item 8, unless and until the Commission takes action in closed session to ratify the probable cause. I would also like to give some context about the probable cause process. Through the Commission's enforcement regulations, the Commission has largely delegated the probable cause determination process to the Executive Director. After the Director of Enforcement initiates a probable cause proceeding by serving a probable cause report on both the respondent and the Executive Director, the respondent may submit a written response to the Executive Director. The Director of Enforcement may file a written rebuttal to the respondent's response. The respondent may also request a probable cause conference with the Executive Director and the Enforcement Division to discuss the case. After these written documents has been delivered and the probable cause conference has been held, if one was requested, The executive director must prepare a written determination of probable cause. This determination states whether the director finds that probable cause exists for each violation alleged in the Director of Enforcement's probable cause report. The executive director will then inform the commission of the determination. At that time, any member of the commission may request a review of the executive director's probable cause determination by the full commission. If any commissioner requests review of the executive director's recommended probable cause determination is not final until at least 3 members of the commission agree to rectify it in closed session. This review must be conducted in closed session because the case is still confidential at this point. For the item before us today, there has been the request for review of the executive director's recommendation of a finding of probable cause. It is important to understand what the term probable cause means. Under Section 7D1 of the Commission's enforcement regulations, probable cause exists when the evidence is sufficient to lead a person of ordinary caution and prudence to believe or entertain a strong suspicion that a respondent committed or caused a violation. Probable cause is not a finding that the respondent actually committed or caused a violation. If the Commission finds that probable cause exists for any count, the case will move forward to a hearing on the merits, which is a separate proceeding where the Commission will decide whether in fact a violation did occur. A hearing on the merit is a public proceeding held in open session. This is important so that the public can hear the arguments presented on both sides and see how the Commission makes the decision about whether a violation was committed. Before we begin the agenda item, I would like to reiterate that today's probable cause review session will be conducted in confidential closed session, and that the public disclosure of the information regarding confidential enforcement proceedings by a member of the Commission or staff is prohibited under the city charter. The charter provides that any member or employee of the Commission or other person who prior to the determination concerning probable cause discloses information about any preliminary investigation except as necessary to conduct the investigation shall be deemed guilty of official misconduct. The unauthorized release of confidential information shall be sufficient grounds for the determination of the employee or removal of the Commission responsible for such release. When the Commission meets in closed session, I will ask that all individuals currently in the hearing room exit the room. The only individuals who will remain in the hearing room are the respondent or respondents in the case, the respondent's attorneys of record, and members of the Enforcement Division. Deputy Director, Clerk, Moderator, and Deputy City Attorney will also remain in the closed session to facilitate the closed session. Does any of my colleagues have any questions regarding this process? Commissioner Bush, do you have any questions? If not, Deputy City Attorney, do you have anything to add to the closed session process?
No, I do not, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, great. If not, I would ask if anyone wished to move to hold a closed session on agenda item 8.
So I move to hold a closed session on agenda item 8.
Second.
Okay, let's go to public comment on this motion, please.
And just so folks are clear, purely public comment on whether to go into a closed
Whether
session.
to hold a public, to hold a closed session.
No, it's public comment on everything related to this item, Commissioner.
How do people know?
How does that work if,
Yeah, we're not supposed to discuss the case in public session. Deputy City Attorney?
sorry, wait 1 minute before, sir. Thank you for being here. We're
Yeah,
just
thank you.
lining up some advice.
If the respondent has people here to speak on her behalf, on the respondent's behalf, then I don't think we can preclude them from giving public comment.
But the matter is not in public yet because we haven't taken any action. So how can people make comments or respond to this matter in public? Because at some point they would need to comment on the case or the general information on this case, and we cannot, they cannot comment on anything in general without mentioning the individuals or the general case. So how can we have a public comment on this matter? I mean,
Commissioner, I'm not sure how this has been handled in the past, but I'm not comfortable precluding people from providing public comment related to the item. So, but it's up to you if the commission wants to caution people to not reveal the substance of whatever the enforcement matter is here, then that is within your discretion.
but if they cannot mention the name of the individual, the general matter of this case, then what are they speaking on? And what are we?
How has this been handled in the past for people who have been here?
I'm not sure on the past procedure.
Well, I suppose anyone speaking knows the respondent. Apparently, I assume the respondent is okay with folks being here. And I think our legal advice is we don't have any basis to preclude public comment. In theory, people can public comment on anything in the world.
It seems that the rules preclude us from talking about it, so we won't say anything. And they're meant to protect the person, so if there's people speaking on their behalf, I suppose that's their right to exercise.
So thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I do want to.
We're trying to protect everybody here.
I do want to protect the integrity of this matter in case it goes any further. We don't know because that's the purpose of this closed session. I understand the Director of Enforcement, Mr. Ford, is here. I don't know if he has any experience dealing with this prior to today. But while we respect the public's right to express their views, I am also very mindful that we also need to protect the respondents' rights should this matter go any further, to maintain any unbiased or prejudicial view on this matter, because technically this was not on the agenda. Technically, it was not on the agenda.
Electronically. So if we've already received public comment electronically, I think
it's not even clear what matter this is on for.
We cannot even mention what this matter is.
Yeah, Chair, if I may. Patrick Ford, Director of Enforcement, for the record. Commissioner Romano, I think you said the charter prohibits the commission and ethics staff from disclosing any information about a case until probable cause. It does not prohibit a respondent from disclosing it or from telling others, and then if those people talk about it, that's okay. That doesn't conflict with the charter, and in fact, we have had cases in the past where respondents do make their cases public. Some have gone to the press, others have just shared it with other people. The charter doesn't prevent them from doing that. It just requires us to keep the case confidential.
So as far as I understand, it's not even public, it's not even clear to us what case we're referring to.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So there were several probable cause determinations sent to us recently. This is involving one case.
Correct.
And it has not been provided to us which case it's
No.
even. Is that correct? Do you know which case it's about?
Yes.
Some of us.
All right. I think I know what case it's about, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, you're about to find out.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure that we're all clear that it hasn't been publicly made, and these are just people who are just showing up.
That's correct. Yeah, the Enforcement Division has in no way made any details of this case or the identity of the respondent public. So if anybody in the room knows about it, it's not from the Ethics Commission or staff.
Got it.
And also, anything that is presented today during this public comment is general public comment. Would that be included in a case, should that case move forward?
The public comment would be in open session, which we're in right now, since nobody but the respondent and her counsel can be in the closed session. So that public comment would be made on the record in open session. It will be broadcast. It will be reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
So did somebody reach out to the respondent and her counsel to come here?
Yes, they're always notified whenever there's any proceeding so that they can be present, and they are present here.
Yeah, I gather. I'm just curious who reached out to her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Deputy City Attorney, based on your legal opinion and advice, the public comment on this item is not on just the closed session. Is on agenda item number 8. So anyone speak on agenda item number 8.
That's right.
Okay. Including disclosing any information that we and the staff are not going to respond to, right? Because we have no idea.
Yes.
All we know, they just want to wish you a Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. With that understanding, so please proceed. We have, if people can line up so we know how many people in the room would like to speak so that the moderator can facilitate those who are in the queue.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Gary Winnick. I am attorney for the respondent, Debbie Raphael, who's here along with my co-counsel, Whitney Antrim. I do appreciate the Commission's thoughtfulness and caution in proceeding on this. I think that's wise. In this particular instance, we are, though, aware of these public comments and don't feel it will be prejudicial or cause any concerns privacy-wise for our client. So thank you for indulging us that and allowing the public comment, and we look forward to answering your questions in closed session.
Just for procedural clarification, we have about 10 people waiting in the room to speak. So maybe we will take the first 3 and then go to those who are remotely participating to see if anyone wants to speak. So the next person, please.
And Speaker, you will have 3 minutes, and your 3 minutes will start now.
Commissioners, Happy New Year. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make this meeting, so I submitted a letter earlier this week. I'd just like to read the letter to you in person and for the record. I have known Debbie Raphael firsthand for approximately 4 years of service on the Commission on the Environment from May 2018 to May 22. I've served on several San Francisco commissions and boards over the last 15 years, the Recreation and Park Commission, the Commission on the Environment, and the Urban Forestry Council, as well as committees of those bodies, and have encountered many public servants at City Hall over that time. Among all those public servants, I can't think of anyone during that time who displayed a higher degree of integrity and character to public service than Debbie Raphael. Debbie's behavior during the 4 years of firsthand observation that I had was first-rate. She displayed character, integrity, and leadership qualities that made us lucky to have her at the department. Among other things, she displayed an impressive dedication to the mission of the department and a heartwarming attention to and mentorship of members of the department, especially the youngest members and most recent members of the department. Debbie Raphael's many contributions to the department and to the city and county of San Francisco will be very much missed. And I just want to add one other thing. Any organization, and City Hall is no different, has a mix of people. There are lots of good people, good performers, and a few poor performers. And then there are the gems. And the gems are people who come in and do great work day after day, have vision and leadership, have impressive character and integrity, and are warm-hearted and inspire everyone around them. And Debbie Rafael was one of City Hall's gems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Speaker, your 3 minutes begins now.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Elaine Engel. I'm a longtime San Francisco resident and an environmental advocate. I've been doing this work as a citizen and unpaid volunteer for the last 6-7 years because I believe our future survival hangs in the balance. On numerous occasions, I interacted and worked with the Department of the Environment, and it is in this connection that I met Director Rafael. As head of SFE, she was surprisingly open and approachable. She listened respectfully to input from myself, my colleagues, and others in the community. This is an attitude that is not universally shown by all city staff or department heads. And I can't tell you how important it is that the city interface with advocates, with the community to get things done. If Ms. Rafael promised she'd do something, she unfailingly followed up. I was impressed by her passion for her work, her openness, her plain-spokenness, her follow-through, and especially by the integrity she demonstrated. I think she exemplified what a civil servant is supposed to be, one who serves the citizens to the best of her ability. Here's an example. When we advocates discovered that SFE received no general funds to accomplish these huge, urgent tasks for climate action, we were appalled. Director Rafael did something without precedent. Representing a department with little power in the city structure, she publicly stated the obvious. The department had to have more funding to help stave off environmental disaster. This showed a dedication, courage, and integrity to do what was right, even if it meant putting herself in a tenuous position with the mayor's office. Once she made these funding requests, which were refused by the mayor, we advocates were able to follow up with city government to demand support for SFE, and this is an ongoing issue still today. The department is not properly funded. So I need to ask myself, and you commissioners, what are we doing here today? Whatever the accusations against Ms. Rafael, I think you need to ask yourselves, did she ever improperly benefit monetarily from her office? Did she pocket bribes or show corrupt intent to benefit herself rather than the people of San Francisco? Or did her actions represent what I saw, the best of department heads, working to further the critically urgent work of SFE in the best possible way, with her hard work, her openness to the community, and with her obvious integrity? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's switch over to our remote audience. Moderator, can you please check if we have any speakers?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue, and we have currently right now 3 callers in the queue. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jen Jackson, and I worked for the San Francisco Environment Department for almost 8 years until October of this past year. As someone who's worked in public service for 3 different public agencies over 16 years, I strongly believe that we must carry out our work with the highest degree of integrity and ethical behavior. And this Commission's role in promoting fair, transparent, and accountable government decision-making is foundational to ensuring the public's trust in government. With that in mind, I'm here to speak to you about my experience as a senior manager who worked under Debbie Rafael's leadership at the Environment Department. I was hired by Debbie and reported directly to her for more than 7 years. And during that time, I was incredibly lucky to have had a first-row seat to watch and learn from Debbie, who modeled for me the art of servant leadership. I watched closely how she managed our department with authenticity, skill, compassion, and grace. She worked incredibly hard with the public and the environment, always at the forefront of her mind, never for her own personal gain. She always led with humility, lifting up others, like myself, and sharing opportunities with others to grow and lead. She's not a political operator, just straightforward, principled, and honest. I don't know anyone who cares more deeply about doing good in the world and doing it right. Whenever Debbie made a mistake, she was honest and transparent about it and would share her lessons learned with us. When rules were unclear, she encouraged us to consult the city attorney and share back our learning so everyone could benefit. And she was proactive in bringing in trainers from this department, the commission, the Ethics Commission, and the city attorney's office to ensure senior managers were educated about conflicts of interest, rules on political work at election time, Form 700 filing, and more. Therefore, it was incredibly shocking and painful for everyone in our department to witness what seems to be unfair treatment of someone who's worked with so much integrity to serve the people of San Francisco and beyond. In fact, this process has done a lot of damage because the underlying message is that public service is risky business no matter how hard you try to play by the rules. When mistakes are made, of course, people should be held accountable. But the standards by which those errors are judged should be fair, transparent, and most especially reasonable, taking into account the nature of the wrongdoing, the intention, and the harm caused, and whether someone personally gained from that. I absolutely believe this commission should identify and punish corruption, which unfortunately has cast a dark shadow on the city. But to sweep Debbie Rafael into that category would itself be dishonest abuse of power, because Debbie is a consummate public servant, and one could only wish that everyone who serves this city were more like her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Madam Chair, did you want to go with another phone
Oh,
call
yes,
from?
please. Yes, please.
Okay, please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lonnie Kent. I worked for the City and County of San Francisco for the better part of 2008 to 2021. I spent most of my time with the City Services Audit Division, the office that addresses performance and efficiencies across the city. I had the good fortune of working with Director Raphael from 2020 to 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. I just returned to city employment on a temp exempt, as many of us formal civil servants did to do our duty during this crisis. It was a time of little sleep and constant heart-wrenching work, high emotions, fatigue, burnout, passion, duty, fear, and the exhilaration of working collectively to do the impossible. We were a committed crew of DSWs in the form of bus drivers, librarians, probation officers, data analysts, every single one of us working outside of our standard scope of work duties. Director Raphael was one of 2 department heads that went into the trenches with us every day. She showed up there every day. She didn't need to be at the leadership table. She needed to be doing the doing with us. She showed up arriving masked, in jeans and sneakers, bringing her brown bag lunch, and asking the incident command structure leadership what she can do to help. There was no ego, there's no hierarchy, just a willingness to be part of the solution. Director Raphael was the support system for so many of us. There was no amount of wellness walks she wouldn't take to help us problem solve. There was no amount of listening she wouldn't do to help us practice self-care so we can sustain ourselves for all those years. 1 minute she'd be helping me decipher how to get the DSWs assigned to me to go home and take care of themselves, because seriously, sometimes we were just dropping like flies from exhaustion. And then the very next minute, I'd see her sitting with a data analyst in some corner, using a wonderfully corny biology analogy to help them understand how much they grew data systems so we could help track that disease. She helped everybody understand their value and help them thrive. She was everywhere and she was everything to all of us. I really can't underline that enough. For me, Director Raphael was the difference. I had just left the city a year prior, partially due to burnout and admittedly due to the disease of cynicism. Like many of us, we get frustrated and we move on and we're just like, okay, I got to take a break from being a civil servant. But Director Raphael changed that for me during the pandemic. I remember it was at maybe month 6 or 7, after another 14-hour day. I got home tired and cranky and just over it. And I looked at my husband and I said, you know, I think I forgot how much I loved to work. And I mean, really, who loves working 14-hour days in the middle of the pandemic, right? And I just really found myself talking about like renewing my.
Thank you, caller. Your 3 minutes has expired.
Thank you. Can we take one more caller from the remote audience?
Sure thing. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Good morning, members of the Ethics Commission. My name is Sarah Jones. I am formerly a staffer from the City and County of San Francisco, first in the Planning Department and then from the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency. And I am now the acting director of the Community Development Agency for the County of Marin. I worked with Debbie for approximately 8 years at the city, first at the Planning Department as the Environmental Review Officer, so responsible for the county's work under, or for the city's work under CEQA, and then as Planning Director of the SFMTA. Debbie then brought me into the EOC with her out of her commitment to what the city needed, and also because she knew that I had something of value to offer to our organization, and it came from her commitment. I left the City and County of San Francisco a year ago. I'm now, as I said, the acting director of the Community Development Agency in Marin County, which includes sustainability and solid waste functions in our Environmental Health Division. So I have direct experience with a portion of Debbie's responsibilities, and I'm speaking with deep knowledge of the challenges she faces, as well as my experience working with her. Debbie was unfailingly committed, supportive, a great thought partner, always working with others in the city to achieve common goals, and that is something that is that can be too rare in San Francisco, and not something that there's institutional support for. But Debbie has always been incredibly supportive of her colleagues and counterparts. She helps us do our best work and be our best selves, and I saw her do that with her own department as well. I engaged directly with her a lot about SFE's work program, and I saw her just working tirelessly to ensure that she was setting up her department to successfully fulfill their responsibilities around San Francisco's sustainability work. And it's here that I get to what's so egregious about this situation. Debbie was placed by this city in an impossible position. She was charged with taking action on the city's commitment to environmental sustainability while being given entirely inadequate tools with which to do so, and I'm primarily speaking of budget. In my observation, Debbie unfailingly did this in an above-board way, even when it meant that she was subject to expectations from other departments on what they needed from SF Environment that Debbie was unable to deliver because of the constraints on her funding. I think it is highly problematic that the City and County of San Francisco not only does not value its committed public servants, it messages to them in deeply harmful ways that they are at fault simply for doing what their jobs demand. I can tell you that the entire episode of corruption
has expired.
Thank you. Let's call the next speaker in room.
Chair Lee, Commissioner, thank you for making time for public comment from regular citizens like myself. My name is Mark McCormick. You have my written comments in your packet, but I wanted to show up today to amplify some of the points that I made therein. A little about me. I am a retired senior executive from Wells Fargo. I've lived in the Bay Area for decades, the past 20-something years in San Francisco, and I now teach yoga and manage a community garden at the corner of 21st and Bryant in my spare time with my neighbor Elena Engel, who I didn't even know was going to be here today. So I'm just a concerned citizen, but I wanted to amplify the points I made in my written comments and say something about Debbie's leadership, what I've noticed and what I valued about her leadership as an ordinary citizen. No one cares more about environmental leadership at the civic level than Debbie. She is uniquely qualified and shows up repeatedly to emphasize the relationship between our government, private companies, and citizenry to do the right thing. When I travel around the world and when I go to my home state of Idaho, something I always brag about San Francisco is things like our zero waste policy or zero waste goals, our 3 bins. You wouldn't believe in Idaho, recycling is haphazard at best. And here, like someday, you know, I have a green bin, I have a blue bin, and some weeks my brown bin is completely empty. That's because Debbie and her department makes it easy for citizens like me to do the right thing. When I read about the picayune charges against Debbie, I was reminded of the many years that I spent serving on the board of directors of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. Our largest contracts were with the city, and our partnership with the city's public health officials was strong. We invited them to our board meetings so they could educate us. We invited them to our fundraising dinners to show that there was a clear and pervasive spirit of partnership between the organizations. I believe this kind of close working relationship between city staff and partner organizations is why San Francisco was able to become a world leader in community-based treatment, education, and eradication of HIV. To treat things like going to a fundraising dinner as corruption is wrong-headed. In actuality, this kind of engagement builds trust in government and represents strong partnership. Debbie is a world leader in the area of civic environmentalism. The Commission should consider the impacts of treating her so unfairly. I hope you will take the opportunity to make a strong statement by absolving Debbie of any apparent wrongdoings and being transparent and open with the citizens of San Francisco about the mistake of the probable cause finding. Thank you.
Any other speakers in the room? Next speaker, please.
All right, Speaker, your
Hello,
3
and I
minutes
also
starts
thank
now.
you for taking public comments. My name is Jeannie Rizzo. I'm currently the chair of the California Board of Environmental Safety, but I'm here as a private citizen and the former CEO of Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. Debbie Rafael is a true public servant who served the people of San Francisco and California with distinction and integrity. I want to share a story that I think speaks to both Debbie's commitment to good government and her impact on the health of the planet and all of us. I've known and worked and partnered with Director Rafael since I began my tenure in 2001 as president and CEO of Breast Cancer Prevention Partners, a San Francisco-based nonprofit focused solely on preventing cancer by reducing our exposure to toxic chemicals and radiation. At that time, Debbie utilized her scientific training as the Toxics Reduction Program Manager for the department. And what she brought to us, she partnered with us in the design and the implementation of the precautionary principle ordinances, which distinguished San Francisco in the world as the first municipality to adopt such an ordinance and such a concept that would drive the city. Without a doubt, these were the most progressive local government policies in the world. We continued to work with Debbie and the Department of the Environment to craft and introduce the San Francisco ordinance that banned toxic chemicals called phthalates in children's toys. Debbie served as our scientist advisor for both the city and the advocacy community, and we were not daunted by industry pushback or challenges. She pushed through that. In fact, this law protecting children from exposure to those chemicals was then adopted in the state of California, and it didn't stop there. She joined with other groups, with us, as we worked with Senator Feinstein to introduce that legislation as a federal law, which has passed. So the work that started here in San Francisco was driven, advised, and supported by Director Rafael. When Debbie left city service to assume the highly vetted position at the California Department of Toxic Substance Control, she brought with her a reputation of scientific rigor and absolute commitment to the people she serves. So as a leader of an organization that relied on advisors, we tapped on her knowledge, sought her direction, all in the service of deepening our knowledge and maintaining our own credibility as we advanced policy on the local, state, and federal level. She never veered from her commitment to protecting the health and well-being of those who are most vulnerable. Her return then to the San Francisco Department of the Environment was applauded by NGOs, environmental health and justice advocates, scientists, and elected officials. So there are countless ways that Debbie has served. It is unfathomable to me that any infraction that you might be addressing would rise above a simple, technical oversight error at worst. It would be unwise and unjust to address her with anything short of respect and admiration. And I really hope she deserves that you give her back her reputation, because she deserves your thoughtful appreciation for her public service. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaker, your 3 minutes begins now.
My name is Meredith Williams, and I'm the Director of California's Department of Toxic Substances Control. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share with you who I know Debbie Rafael to be, who I've seen her be for more than a decade. I first met Debbie in 2006 when I heard her speak. I had just left the semiconductor industry in reaction to chronic discrimination and with a desire to do environmental work. That day, she provided a compelling vision of what we could do societally to move toward a more sustainable future. I was struck by how genuinely she conveyed a sense of urgency coupled with optimism. I immediately recognized her as an impactful, sincere leader and approached her to ask her to share further insights with me. She was nothing but generous and encouraged me as I made my way into a completely new field. I landed at an aquatic resources research NGO. So we could have easily parted ways and fallen out of touch. But Debbie continued to provide opportunities for me to understand environmental policy. And over the years, I watched her take bold actions to advance a progressive environmental agenda. In 2013, then Director Rafael approached me about working together. She convinced me to join DTSC as Deputy Director under her leadership. It was her belief that my best opportunity to contribute to environmental protection was as a public servant. I had worked in the private sector and at a nonprofit before Cal EPA. What surprised me most about government work is the seriousness with which public servants take their work. They think about the public trust, and they strive to be of service to the people who count on them. Even amongst the many dedicated public servants that I've had the chance to work with, Debbie stands out. She modeled behaviors I'm still trying to emulate. I watched her work for solutions that truly met the needs of California's most vulnerable communities, exhorting other public agencies to join together to solve problems. I watched her model positive values for an organization that had been adrift and staff that was beleaguered and cynical. I watched her withstand personal, contempt-laden, unsupported attacks. And rather than becoming defensive, Debbie listened for the truth of a speaker's experience. Now that I serve in this position, I know that can only be done with a focus on mission and with courage, hallmark Debbie Rafael behaviors. Integrity is one of my core values. To me, integrity means congruency. Does a person show up the same way under different circumstances? Does a person set a standard for her behavior and hold herself accountable to that standard? And if that person is a public servant, does she live to the obligations to the people she serves and the public trust? In the case of Debbie Rafael, the answer to all of these questions is an emphatic yes. I know Debbie Rafael to be a woman of integrity and dedication. She is the type of public servant I strive to be, and for whom we should all be grateful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks. Next speaker, please.
Speaker, you will have 3 minutes, and I will have to cut you off on 3 minutes, but just letting you know, 3 minutes starts now.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners, for hearing us. My name is Brian Race, and I'm a San Francisco resident, District 4, a parent who hustles in the city, and a public servant. I used to be a employee of the Department of Environment and currently am a planner with the County of Marin. I work for and closely with Debbie Raphael for 5 years or 6 years, from 2015 to 2021. Debbie was and continues to be a true leader, a mentor, and a role model for all of us. Climate and sustainability leaders, industry practitioners, electeds, public servants, locally, regionally, statewide, nationwide, globally recognize her and her leadership, and is to me and to them synonymous with San Francisco's environmental ambitions and movement. But they also recognize her for her technical abilities, leadership qualities, and unique ability to invite you into her world in just one speech to a crowd. It is rare, and I repeat, rare, to have someone so well known and beloved by many, yet made herself accessible to everyone, whether a part-time intern or the mayor. It was this accessibility, accompanied by her grace, empathy, absence of ego, and authenticity, that inspired me and others coming up through their career to feel valued and part of an organization greater than ourselves. I have seen how these qualities have positively affected those around her, and I have carried that forward in my professional career today and for the rest of my life. In essence, we were motivated and graced by Debbie to others as the best of public servants, something to aspire to as a professional and more so as a human being. It is a shame that the city has lost one of its most talented, unique, compassionate, and genuine individuals, and in a manner that is far deserved from someone of her nature, abilities, and stature in this world. I wish her the greatest luck beyond this moment in time. However, those that know her know she does not need luck. We will all look forward to seeing her continue on in service to the public and leading us forward in this environmental movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Moderator, can you check if anyone's waiting at the remote queue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have one more caller pending in the queue. Please stand by. Correction, we have 2 callers waiting in the queue. Please stand by. Thank you, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. And if I could get a 30-second warning, that would be fantastic.
We'll hear
Good morning.
a bell go off.
Thanks. Good morning. David Pilpel. I support Debbie Raphael and her work as Director of the Department of the Environment. I understand that there is no public probable cause report at this time. I believe that whatever allegations the Commission staff has should be public, whether you find probable cause or not. I believe that any arrangements that were made were legal at the time, and that any subsequent changes in law cannot be applied retroactively. If any items were not properly disclosed on a Form 700 or elsewhere, I assume that they have been corrected and were unintentional. I believe that Ms. Raphael has no prior enforcement history and should not be subject to unreasonable penalty, if any. We should bear in mind the proper obligations of department heads while in office, as well as reasonable post-employment burdens. In this case, I think the burdens here appear to be disproportional. People should not have to retain private counsel at personal expense in a case like this. It only serves to deter good people from serving as department heads or elsewhere in city government. Plus, I agree with all of the prior speakers as to her character and integrity. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Moderator, can you call the next speaker?
Yes, Madam Chair. Please stand by. And after this call, another caller jumped in the queue. So after this caller, we have one more pending.
Okay.
Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Chris Geiger, and I first of all would like to echo just about every comment that's already been made about Debbie and add a few things. I first met Debbie in the 1990s, so I may win the prize on that. When I worked for the California Department of Pesticide Regulation, she was a grantee of ours. It was obvious from our first meeting she was an exceptional person in terms of her dedication to public service. when a position came open on her team at SFE in 2003, I jumped at the opportunity. I retired last year, and I spent about 19 years working with the department, most of it under Debbie in various capacities. I want to just sort of echo what others have said, but also kind of give a little bit of an internal picture on how this has landed, all of these events have landed on people who know Debbie. Because as a manager, she is someone who endlessly told staff about why we should be proud to be civil servants, why it's honorable to serve the public interest. It came up constantly in whether, as a parenthetical comment or a theme of an entire agenda. There was talk about what it means to be trusted, what it means to the honor of public service. And for this reason, when the current charges or infractions that are before you became known, it was absolutely shocking to those who knew her, and I would say profoundly demoralizing for staff who had, a certain level of faith and pride in their role, to see someone like Debbie, who has always exemplified absolutely the highest ethical standards in her work, be put through all of this, and to lose such a champion for climate action and all of the other issues that the department was working on and is working on was an intense blow for all of us. And I just want that, I think you need to know this as part of the context for your decision making. I have great faith and respect for the mission of the Ethics Commission, for the importance of public integrity. And I think that, to sort of quote from your website, Debbie has set a very high bar in serving both by example and by education the cause of public integrity. None of the proposed infractions that she is charged with involved any level of self-interest at all. And if you knew Debbie, you would know
Your 3 minutes has expired.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have one more caller pending in the queue.
Okay, please go ahead, because we're going 3 and 3.
Eileen.
Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Hello, my name is Eileen Sheehan, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I retired about a year ago from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I've worked for 40 years in public service at the United Nations, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the Carter White House, EPA, and the California EPA's Department of Toxic Substances Control. After 40 years in public service, I feel I have a strong sense of integrity. And Debbie Rafael has integrity in abundance. I worked directly with her while I served as the manager of the U.S. EPA's Solid Waste and Pollution Prevention Office. We collaborated on the United Nations World Environment Day. The Department of the Environment received competitive grant funds that benefited San Francisco businesses and neighborhoods, as well as other cities and in California, as well as beyond. In all the work that went on between our offices, I found her utterly trustworthy and dependable. She had a tremendous focus on ethics and integrity, while she also balanced that with achieving meaningful results for communities and the environment. She led with integrity in the realm of climate, toxics reduction, green purchasing, protecting vulnerable workers and communities, and generally in environmental protection. I simply cannot underscore enough that I found that she had an unassailable focus on ethics and
honorably serving the public good, and she cared deeply about maintaining citizens' faith in public agencies. And she did that with funding, some funding that US EPA trusted her with, and we saw her carry that work out without any concerns about integrity. Those of us who worked with her, really came to trust her knowledge, her experience, her vision, and leadership. The US EPA appointed her to the Local Government Advisory Committee based on this track record. She has a legacy of honorable collaboration with stakeholders and a track record of meaningful results. I truly feel I can speak, having worked with her for over 20 years of the 40 years that I've worked in government, that Debbie's leadership and ethical approaches
Thank
to
you,
her
caller.
work.
Your 3 minutes has expired.
Okay, thank you. The next caller is in room. Yeah, you're good.
Speaker, you will have 3 minutes, starting now.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is David Hochschild. I serve as Chair of the California Energy Commission. In that capacity, I manage a $9 billion budget and a staff of 700. I've had the opportunity to work with city and county leaders across the state on building decarbonization, transportation electrification, energy storage, microgrids, offshore wind, and just about everything else we need to get to 100% clean energy future. And I can tell you, you have lost a sterling public servant. Debbie Raphael is at the very top of the talent that we have in the state of California, and I think it's a shame. You may never get a formal apology for what's happened to you, but I would like to apologize on behalf of all of us who know you. I got to know you in my professional capacity, but I have to say I'm really here as a native San Franciscan. I grew up in this town, spent a lot of evenings right here. I was a commissioner at the SFPUC, worked closely with the Department of Environment, worked with then Mayor Newsom, Mayor Lee, even Mayor Jordan, Mayor Brown, and was a colleague of Mayor Breed's back 23 years ago in the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. And I want to just point out that our city, we have these high-level leaders of Pelosi and Feinstein and Newsom and Jerry Brown and others who come up, but really the work is done one rung down from that, and it's people like Debbie that make San Francisco proud. And what we do in the city affects what happens at the state, and that affects what happens at the nation and the world. And the emotion I feel in me right now is from how high the stakes are and how painful it is to see someone treated like this. Because actually the costs are not just to Debbie's sterling reputation and her family and her career, which has been tarnished, but to the larger goals that we all have. And so it makes me really sad to see my city behave like this, and I'm ashamed. So I'm sorry for you, Debbie.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Speaker, you will have 3 minutes, and it begins now.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Gina Solomon. I'm a clinical professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, and also a principal investigator at the Public Health Institute. I previously was the Deputy Secretary for Science and Health at Cal EPA, and also a senior scientist at the Natural Resources Defense Council. I cleared my calendar this morning when I heard about this hearing, just as everyone else in this room cleared their calendars. It was a busy calendar for all of us to clear, and we would do it again in a heartbeat for Debbie. So if there is another, I hope there will not be another hearing, we will all be here again with additional folks as well to express our support for our colleague. I really have two things that I want to say. They've been said by others, but first, that Debbie Raphael's ethics are above reproach. I have known her for 20 years, and I have interacted with her in multiple capacities and seen the just incredibly high bar that she sets for herself in her interactions with others and in all of her activities. She drives herself hard to
do the absolute best that she can do every day for everyone. And she sacrifices herself and has sacrificed herself in the process over and over again. I really, she is really the selfless public servant that I really took as a role model when I went to Cal EPA. Secondly, this is a much broader issue. If San Francisco, to be honest, becomes known as a city that eats its own, and that in particular eats its best, it will never be able to attract top talent to lead its departments and agencies. In the field of environmental health, what happened to Debbie sent shockwaves, not only locally and statewide, as you've seen, but nationally and internationally. And nobody is going to want to come work for the city in the field of environmental protection after seeing what happened. And that is a shame. And please rectify this injustice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next call. Next speaker, please.
Speaker, you will have 3 minutes, and it begins now.
Hi, my name is Dr. Kelly Moran. I'm a senior scientist. I have worked with Debbie since about 1990. My comments are made in the context of my career starting in the late 80s, working with and for local governments. So I've interacted with literally thousands of government employees. And Debbie's up there at the top. You're hearing 3 themes today. One is about integrity. The second one is about dedication to public service. And the third one, which is that Debbie has never sought to enrich herself, and I've never observed any actions or interactions that involved preference for Debbie over preference for the public's good. So she's always made decisions that are good for the public, even when they're hard or difficult for Debbie. And I can give you some examples. In the 90s, I was probably the first one among dozens of folks who approached Debbie to lead the California Department of Toxic Substances Control. We approached her because of her dedication to public service and her integrity. That agency was really messed up. She did that, she took that job, and Governor Brown challenged her to dig in there, find the bad things that were happening there, and fix it. I had no idea what I was asking her for. Her time there is my gold standard for public service, and I honor her deeply for it. It came at tremendous personal cost. I saw her literally tearing up inside over what she went through trying to get that agency to have integrity and operate properly. She could have done a lot of things after that, include making a lot more money than she made working here in San Francisco if she was interested in Debbie's interest. But her commitment to public service brought her back here, where she did wonderful things for our city. I am so proud that she built a wonderful team and did so much great work for our city. She went to a lot of events, and she did that because she needed to learn a lot and engage in the community and learn from other people. I saw her at some of those events because I live here, and she didn't stop and sit back and talk to me. She was out there talking to everyone else and learning and engaging because that was her job. It would have been much nicer for her to spend her evenings at home. But she wasn't doing that because she's committed to public service and inclusive public service. If you penalize her for that kind of thing, it's the same thing as telling employees it's safer to stay in your office and just deal with the folks who have enough resources to bring paid lobbyists to come see you. That's not the kind of community San Francisco is. We want an inclusive government. We want leaders who are going to engage with the public and stay there. So I thank you very much for taking this testimony today, and I hope you will deeply consider this as you make your deliberations.
Thank you. Let's switch back to our remote speakers. Moderator, please.
Madam Chair, there are no further callers in the queue.
Okay. Then the next one en route.
Speaker, you will have 3 minutes, and it begins now.
Good morning. My name is Jared Blumenfeld. I'm the president of Waverly Street Foundation. I was formerly the secretary of Cal EPA. I've known Debbie since 2001, when I was her boss for 9 years as the director of San Francisco's Department of the Environment. And really, I'm here. David Hochschild kind of gave the emotion that is in all of our hearts, which is we need to make sure what happened to Debbie never happens to another civil servant in San Francisco again, and that's why I'm spending my morning here to have this conversation with you. Your job is incredibly serious. What you do is fundamentally important to government. We need ethics in government at all levels. And you need to take your job seriously, but that doesn't mean that everything that comes before you is equally serious. And today, I just really want to bring us back to something, Chair, that you raised, which is the reasonable person test. The reasonable person I think, would be confounded if they looked at the facts of what we're talking about today. Debbie went to a community dinner that was really about engaging community. I did the job that Debbie did. You have to go to community events. The community sponsor gave her a declaration of how much that dinner cost. She put that on her forms. It turned out that rather than being $25, it was between $50 and $60, but she did not know that. There's no reason that she should know that. If we expected every single Form 700 filer to do the math of what the actual cost of a dinner was divided by the total number of people for every single event that you went to, you would bar anyone from taking a job in San Francisco. I would never do that. The person that you want to be your next executive director would never take that. So the bar of entry to what it means to actually participate in this work is incredibly important to realize today. And we have an opportunity to set the record straight, to send a clear message, because right now the folks that are really happy about Debbie leaving are the folks that are in the fossil fuel industry, the folks in the pharmaceutical industry, the people that we really would not want to support in San Francisco are the folks that are cheering. The folks that are really crestfallen, the people that actually care, like we all do, about ethics, about upholding the greatest standard in public office. If Debbie had a failing, is that she was incredibly unpolitical. San Francisco has sharp elbows. We talked about due process at the beginning. Due process failed Debbie. This process has come at the end. She's already lost her job. Her reputational damage has been real. You get to remedy that today. Please, please look at the facts of this case and realize that Debbie has always acted with integrity and has been a model civil servant to us all. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no more speakers in the room. And moderator, can you double check to make sure we have no more speakers waiting in the queue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there are no more callers waiting in the queue.
Okay, public comment is closed for item number 8. Oh, yes. So we will now meet, my apologies. We do need to take a vote on the motion, whether to hold a closed session. Have we made the motion yet? It's been a while. Did anyone make the motion?
All right, I move to go into closed section on this issue.
Okay, second. Okay, roll call.
On the motion to meet in closed session, Commissioner Bush?
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang?
Aye.
Commissioner Finliv?
Aye.
Chair Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Romano?
Aye.
Madam Chair, with 5 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Okay, the commission will now meet in closed session, and at this time, I ask that all individuals currently in the hearing room, please exit the room so that the commission may meet in closed session. The only individuals who should remain in the hearing room are the respondent or let's take a 5-minute break before we come back. Moderator, can you please connect Vice Chair Bush to the closed session while we're taking a 5-minute break?
What are we waiting on? Sorry. No, I thought that we'd be way done by then. Yeah. What are we waiting on?
Is it because we have hybrid meetings or tech issues? Is it because we're having a hybrid meeting?
Yeah, we're joining back into the, so as a,
Oh, okay.
Mic check. Everything good?
I can hear you, Geraldo. We're just still waiting on Commissioner Bush to join us.
Perfect. Thank you.
I know, but he'll come back on before then. We can do the 8 before he comes back.
Okay, so while we're waiting for the vice chair to rejoin us,
Oh.
I
So
just,
I don't mean to interrupt, Shirley. Let me go ahead and take us out of practice session because I was waiting for Commissioner Bush to join us. I will take us out of practice session and
it's okay, we're going to proceed right here. He will join us whenever.
Whatever. He's doing it.
okay, we are recording, we are live.
Okay, welcome back to the open session of this commission meeting. I would like to announce that we will be continuing agenda item number 8 to the February commission meeting. So now let us proceed to agenda item number 9, which is discussion.
Commissioner, Deputy City Attorney Brad Russi, the commission needs to close out that closed session item by voting on whether or not to disclose the discussions that the commission had in closed session.
I move not to disclose the closed session.
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
The motion has been made and seconded to not disclose what is discussed in closed session with the exception that the commission will disclose whether the commission has or has not ratified probable cause for each count contained in the executive director's determination. I will now call roll. Commissioner Bush? Commissioner Flores-Fang?
Aye.
Commissioner Finliff?
Aye.
Chair Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Romano?
Aye.
With 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Okay, now we are going to agenda item number 9, which is a discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
I know Commissioner Bush had some thoughts.
I know, we're waiting for him, right?
Well, before he gets here, I thought that the DHR was going to get back to us on a timeline for their negotiations with the union vis-a-vis.
Just be careful on the.
Yeah, vis-a-vis the potential ballot measure.
You're right. I did think that also.
Commissioners, we have that plan for the Feb meeting.
That's for February.
Yes, Feb 10th meeting,
okay.
Because DHR was not available for this meeting.
That's fine. If they could get a written timeline, that would be terrific.
We have requested them to come prepared, but we haven't heard back from them yet. We'll follow up.
Okay.
You mean like to send to us in advance?
Sure.
Yeah, that would be nice.
we will check with them.
Okay. Is Commissioner Bush, are you back on? Because I know you.
No, he is not. We are waiting. Etta is assisting, trying to get him back online. Alvin, thank you.
How about this, Deputy City Attorney, can we take public comment now while we're waiting for Vice Chair Bush to rejoin us?
Sure, Commissioner, if you'd like to take that item out of order and return to this one, then I don't see any problem with that.
Public comment on anything else, not on the agenda item. That's agenda item number 10. So why don't we just proceed to agenda item number 10, which is public comment on anything else not on the agenda while we're waiting for the Vice Chair to rejoin us. Moderator, can you please check and see if there's any speakers waiting?
Thank you, Chair Lee. Please stand by. Members of the public who are already online and wish to provide public comment under item number 10 on matters not appearing on the agenda should now dial *3 or raise your hand in WebEx if you have not already done so to be added to the public comment line. Please stand by as we check for callers in the queue. We have one caller in the queue. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, this is
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. David Pilpel again. Just wanted to clarify, I believe in checking on the website, I noticed something of concern. The budget meeting that was referenced in the executive director's report is now to begin at 1:30 and not at 10 a.m., but the website still lists it as 10 a.m. on next Friday, the 20th. That's under sfethics.org/commission/meetings. So if staff can attend to that after the meeting, that would be great. Don't want anybody to get the wrong time for the budget meeting. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, indeed, we are meeting at a different time, which is 1:30. Thank you for reminding the public. Okay. Anyone else? Moderator, anyone else?
Madam Chair, there is no further callers in the queue.
Okay, can you please double check and see if Vice Chair Bush is back on? So
We
that
did
can-
get word from Alvin that Larry is in the room.
I'm in the room.
Okay, so let us go back to agenda item number 9, which is discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. Vice Chair?
And I did have, I wanted to just bring up some concerns about our upcoming discussion of the budget. In some past reports on ethics by the controller, and which were confirmed and concurred with by Leanne, they did not only what it is that we're doing, but a listing of what we're not doing, largely because of resources. So, for example, since 2015, we've been under a mandate passed as a law that we do an annual audit of at least one lobbyist. And in the 7 years since then, we have not done any lobbyist audit. I think there's one getting started now, but if so, it's on tippy toes. So that's just one example. And so when we do the budget discussion, I would like the staff to provide us with their estimate of what it is that's not being done and what it would take to get them done. I don't see any reason why we should be completely fenced in by an overall city budget when our needs are to serve the public And if we don't have the resources, we can't do it. That was my point that I want to bring up.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting, joining us today is our acting director, Director Thigendale, and thank you so much for taking the leadership. And for the next meeting, the next February meeting, if you can include in the agenda a report, a staff report on the auditing schedule that was presented to the Board of Supervisors. So that would be great for us to have a discussion. So if you can include that.
Chair, to clarify, are you referring to the Jan 20th special meeting or the Feb 10th meeting? Okay.
January 20th meeting is only to
Only for the budget. Yeah, okay. We'll plan that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, let's go to agenda item number 11, which is adjournment. No discussions.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm not sure you called public comment on 9. Just on item 9, I don't think you asked for public comment. You did? Okay. I don't think so.
No, you didn't.
Well,
Okay.
But we did number 10, yeah. So,
Okay,
Madam
public
Chair, we are
comment.
checking to see if there are
Okay.
callers in the queue.
Okay.
Please stand by. Okay. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the
Okay,
queue.
thank you. And now is agenda item 11, adjournment. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.